asked to do a Laguna Blue inspired look and I couldn't possibly say no. As someone who grew up with Monster High dolls, it holds a special place in my heart. Monster High introduced diversity to a world of dolls that lacked it. Laguna Blue specifically was an exchange student, and her boyfriend was freshwater when she was saltwater. One of the interesting parts of their relationship is that Gil's parents didn't like Laguna and didn't respect their relationship because she was a saltwater fish. Monster High tackled the things that other doll companies wouldn't do, and I think that's beautiful. If this is something you guys would be interested in, I'd love to do more Monster High looks. As requested, I'm doing more Monster High looks. This one is inspired by Venus McFly. Venus is actually more personal to me because me and my sister had her doll growing up. One of the key components of her personality is that she is a plant monster, so she's an environmentalist, which other people can find really annoying. In the show and movies, she's found organizing events to help fundraise and support the environment, and other students and even school administration find this really annoying. The other monsters don't want to make the necessary accommodations for plant monsters because it takes a lot of effort. Miss McFly is not only an environmentalist, but also a metaphor for neurodivergent people. That kind of representation makes a huge difference to a kid growing up. Today I did a look inspired by my childhood favorite, Frankie Stein. I even have a little earring of her. Frankie's character always really resonated with me. When she was introduced to the series, she read teen magazines to understand the behavior of her peers. It's important to note that I and many other members of the fandom headcanon Frankie as autistic, so I and others interpreted this behavior as her trying to understand her peers and their behaviors. Another kind of autistic thing about Frankie is that she has the power of electrokinesis, but she has a hard time controlling it. Sometimes she gets supercharged, and in order to get rid of that extra energy, she swings her hands back and forth, like stimming. Her character showed me and other young people that it's okay to not fit in, and to stand up for yourself, and to stim. Frankie made me feel so seen and heard growing up that I actually dressed up as her one year for Halloween, and I'll show you that at the end. My sister and I even had the original doll. There we are. Today's look is inspired by one of my personal favorites, Spectra Vondergeist. She transferred from Haunted High to Monster High. When she first arrived, she didn't really have any friends, so she snuck around and collected gossip from students for her blog. Spectra's habit of spinning stories about herself and others made it really hard for her to differentiate reality from her stories. Her sneaky behavior came to a halt when the main cast caught her trying to collect gossip. Spectra reevaluated her morals and changed her blog to be more news-like. She befriended Gulia and Claudine and was then better able to understand other people's emotions. Spectra's complex character reminds us that we are not the people we once were, and you're not tied down by the chains of your past. Today's look is inspired by our favorite zombie, Gulia yelps. He speaks in zombie and is often discriminated against because of this. However, leader of the fear-leading squad, Cleo Denial, gives her a chance. Gulia is regarded as the most intelligent monster in Monster High. As much as Gulia appreciates Cleo giving her a chance, Cleo tends to take advantage of Gulia's intelligence. Cleo sometimes even speaks for Gulia because a lot of the staff doesn't speak zombie. Gulia is not only a metaphor for students whose first language isn't English, but she's also a metaphor for autistic people. She is highly intelligent, but often taken advantage of because of this, and her special interest is comic books. In one of her diaries, she talks about how she wants to get tickets to go to NecoCon to collect comics and cosplay. Today's Monster High look is inspired by Raquel Goyle. Raquel is a transfer student from Scara, France. By going to Monster High, Raquel plans to broaden her horizons. Up until this point, Raquel has seen the world as protecting those around her and following very strict rules. At Monster High, Raquel realizes that she can be protected as well as protect others. Raquel actually became friends with Gulia when she warned Gulia that the Werecat twins were going to play a prank on her. This was when Raquel realized that she is more for people than what she can do for them. However, she also learns that she can't just point out the problems within other people, she must also address the problems within herself. Raquel teaches us that we should accept the freaky flaws within ourselves and the people around us, and protect those that are disadvantaged in comparison to ourselves. Today's look is inspired by Scara's screams. Scara is a banshee, or a type of ghost. Banshees are a creature that announce the death of others, so a problem Scara faces is that her fellow students think that she's announcing their death. In the webisodes, we find out that she went to telepathy camp in order to communicate telepathically with other students to prevent them being scared of her. However, when Scara develops a crush on Invisibility, she gets scared to get close to him. And Invisibility is scared to get close to Scara because he's not sure if his feelings are reciprocated. In order to get the two together, the main cast develops a little scheme. They tell Dracula that Invisibility has a date in the graveyard tonight, and not to tell Scara. And of course, Scara reads her mind. And then Claude tells Invisibility that Scara has a date in the graveyard. And when the two make it to the graveyard, they inevitably realize it's just the two of them. And that if they just communicated their feelings from the beginning, they wouldn't have had to do all this. Today's look is inspired by Abby Abominable, daughter of the Yeti. The legend of the Yeti comes from the Himalayas. Abby leaves the Himalayas to attend Monster High. However, Abby experiences a bit of a culture shock. The students at Monster High talk a lot and say very little. And in the Himalayas, the air is very thin, so Abby doesn't talk very much. She's considered blunt and sometimes rude. Between the different cultures, and also English not being Abby's first language, she has a bit of trouble making friends. On Abby's first day at Monster High, Toralei decides to throw a snowball at Frankie. Frankie assumed this came from Abby and threw one back. Then Abby's competitive nature kicked in and they started a snowball fight. When the two spend the day together, they realize they're very different, but they can put their differences aside to get back at Toralei. Abby uses her ice powers to trip Toralei and the Werecat twins and prevent them from pushing the main cast into the pool. Abby shows us that we should embrace each other's cultural differences. Today's look is inspired by Cleo Denial. Cleo is the daughter of the mummy and has a sister named Nephra. As royalty, Cleo expects all of her peers to treat her as such. On the surface, Cleo can come off as selfish, arrogant, and downright rude, but she has a really kind heart. One of the best representations of this dichotomy is with her friend Gulia. Cleo is known to take advantage of Gulia's intelligence and often cheat off of her, but Cleo looks out for Gulia and helps her with her shyness. The exterior that Cleo builds due to her expectations of being treated like royalty makes it hard for her to create and develop deeper relationships with her friends. Over time, we watch Cleo become more vulnerable and open with her friends. By opening up and becoming more vulnerable, Cleo is able to become a kinder and much better friend. Today's makeup look is inspired by Operetta. My sister was so excited for this look that she actually designed it herself. Operetta is the daughter of the Phantom of the Opera. Her character is centered around her passion for music. Operetta plays multiple instruments, including the banjo, guitar, and organ. Her devotion and passion for music is rarely matched. In her diaries, she says that once she was playing guitar and Howleen was interested, she asked Operetta if she'd give her lessons. Operetta explained that she had dedicated her life since childhood to playing music, and if Howleen couldn't dedicate that kind of time, she would need to find someone else to teach her. Although Operetta may not leave the greatest impression, a lot of people respect her. Between her sheer talent, diva-like behavior, and rebellious nature, it's hard not to love her. Although it took her months to actually start socializing with her peers, she eventually did make some friends, but she never stops going to the catacombs to record more music. Today's look is inspired by pop star Caddy Noir. Caddy became a pop star at a young age because of her true passion for music and singing. Her love of performing brought her to world tours and sold-out stadiums. As much as she loved to perform, unfortunately the limelight came with some downsides. Caddy felt like she couldn't show her frustration with all of the gossip journals and the paparazzi. In her journals, this was reflected through her superstitious behaviors, whether it be wearing lucky shoes or accessories. Caddy held a surprise concert that the Monster High ghouls attended. They met Caddy backstage and they wanted to talk to her. One ghoul stuck out to her, and that was Laguna Blue. Laguna and Caddy exchanged emails, and Laguna let her know that if she ever wanted to talk or come to Monster High, she was always welcome, giving Caddy a chance to relax. Today's look is inspired by Cine Wolf. She's fierce and fabulous and has a passion for fashion. Her impressive style even got her onto scariest runways. A central part of Claudine's character is her protective personality, both over her friends and her family. Before the reboot, it was known that Claudine had 6 siblings. They were all named in the 3rd book of the Monster High series: Claude, Hamilton, Halden, Holston, Howleen, and Clonner. All of the siblings, including Claudine, had normie aliases for when they went out as humans. The book allows us to take a peek into the life of a monster who lives in the world of humans, the Wolf family being a pack that can protect each other. Part 2 on Howleen with my sister is already up. My little sister's look is inspired by Howleen Wolf. Howleen is Claudine and Claude's younger sister. Although Claudine is one of Howleen's closest companions, she has a bad habit of comparing herself to her siblings. In Howleen's 13 Wishes diary, she explains that Claude has sports and Claudine has fashion. However, Howleen still hasn't figured out what she has. She wants to try 1,000 different things and doesn't know which one is hers. She has this deep-rooted fear that she won't find out what her passion is until it's too late and she can't pursue it. That fear is something that a lot of us can relate to. Howleen is a reminder that we're not alone in our fears. And for us older siblings, Howleen reminds us to take care of and be patient with our younger siblings.